Buenas tardes, le de Dios. Good evening, Española and Rio Arriba and Santa Clara and Yete. This is really beautiful site, and I'm so glad, a lot of people actually follow these and we stream them, which is why they wanted me to start somewhat on time. And it is really wonderful because it is really only through community that we live our democracy. And by having this town hall here today, we are actually living our democracy. And we know it's alive and well by the turnout today. And we want to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the New Mexico flag. And Raylan and Kinsley Valdez are going to lead us. Raylan and Kinsley Valdez are going to lead us in the pledge and the salute. Come on up. Come on. I salute the flag. I pledge allegiance. Oh, shoot.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of New Mexico. Thank you very much. And thank you to the Valdez familia. And I need to tell you, I just love the fact that we have the Pledge of Allegiance and what it means in the context of the indivisible liberty and justice. Liberty and justice. And then we turn to the flag of the state of New Mexico. And in New Mexico, we understand that liberty and justice are married with diversity and with diverse cultures. And it is this understanding of the richness of who we are, each in our own cultures, that also shares traits with the cultures of our neighbors. I always talk about tamales, like really, tamales are delicious, but we are thankful to the corn and the chile, which comes from here in America. But then I love the fact that there's pork, which came on over, right? Like even when we think about our food, when we think about how we're intermarried, when we think about how we interact with each other, it's not always easy, but it is sometimes in that friction where we are able to talk about the issues that are difficult, that I need to stop touching that we resolve issues. And in that's what we are doing here today. We're going to be talking about the issues that we face, but also about how do we together address them and together, juntos, find the solutions and our path to prosperity, which is what we need as Americans and what the promise of America is. I want to thank our wonderful elected officials who are here with us today. And, I know that you serve with great love for your communities in each of your roles. And so State Senator Leo Jaramillo. I first met Senator Jaramillo. I had to go and help plaster a church. And I will never forget that, plastering the church. And then Española City Councilor, Felicia Archuleta Toya and Teeny Bustos. And then Rio Arriba County's Economic Development Director, who are all here today. Sorry. So this.
We also had.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Española City Councilor Sam Ledoux.
And Española City Council Sam Ledoux, or how we say it in northern New Mexico, Sam Ledoux. I don't know if you ever went to the Milagro at Ledoux.
Yeah.
Remember that one? That's anyway, that I go along. But this weekend I wanted to talk a little bit about, I went ahead and attended with a lot of my gente there were about 4,000 to 5,000 people at the No Kings rally in Santa Fe. And we threw that rally here in New Mexico. There were rallies everywhere else. Well, at the same time, President Trump threw himself a $45 million birthday military parade in Washington, D.C. And the reason I think that's important is when we talk about waste and fraud and how do we spend money that best serves our communities, I don't think spending $45 million on a birthday parade is what makes sense and how you improve communities like those here in northern New Mexico. And the fact I didn't, make this up, other community decided to call it a No Kings rally because they wanted to emphasize that in a democracy, we want leaders who care more about their people rather than themselves. And I talked at that hearing about how our founding fathers rejected monarchy 250 years ago because they believed that a democracy for the people, by the people, of the people was the best way that we could achieve prosperity for everyone. I spoke recently about, I was able to sit with my father, who was a state senator, when he died, because we knew he was going to die and we spent many months together. We actually wrote his obituary together, which is a very moving thing to be able to do with somebody you love so much as your father. And I asked him why he served as a state senator. And he talked to me about everything he was able to get done in the healthcare arena. Because when he came as a state senator from Las Vegas, he went to Santa Fe and a hippie doctor, that's how a hippie doctor came and told me about generic drugs. He just went on and on about these things. And he said, the thing about democracy and the reason I ran is because we come from a poor community that at that time didn't have healthcare facilities, did not have doctors who had last names like Vargas or Vasquez or Torres or those kinds of last names in northern New Mexico. And he worked really hard to change that. And he said, we were able to do that through democracy, through electing somebody like me from El Norte who would come to Santa Fe and champion those things. And that's what I really believe, is that it's only through democracy that communities like ours that sometimes are, and not sometimes, too often, are left behind, have an opportunity to have things like Northern New Mexico College, which has a pathway for education for many of our students. And, back in the founding days, Samuel Adams, he actually believed in the power of the American people to govern through elections. And he said, and because people were saying, oh, we won't be able to elect people, we should just stay with the king. And he said, no, 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 no. An honorable people will elect honorable leaders. And his cousin, President Adams, said that the only foundation of a free constitution is pure virtue. And if this cannot be inspired into our people, they will get tyrants and tyrannies. What amazing faith. What amazing faith that 250 years ago, they put in us to say that we would always think about virtue in our leaders, but that also that from 250 years ago, they said, we know that you will be a moral people and you will elect moral leaders, but also that if you make a mistake, that democracy will give you the opportunity to correct it. Because we have elections every 2 years for your House of Representatives, I need to be very close to you so you can tell me what we want. And every 4 years for our presidency, we have an opportunity through our First Amendment to come together, to have free speech, to have freedom of religion. Let's start our meetings in our mornings con una bendición, with our prayers, however we want to do it. Or if you don't believe in prayer, you don't need to do it, right? You can do whatever you want. That we have the opportunity to come together, to have protests, to have manifestations like we did this Saturday, that we have the right and the obligation to ask our government to do something different than what they are doing now. And we need to always live that Constitution. And by coming here today, to have a town hall, and by sharing that with others, we will indeed be living the Constitution. And I think it is really important that we live that Constitution, that we show up, that we use the freedom of the press, includes all of that social media, because I believe that what we're doing right now is a mistake. And the reason I say that is because of what we have just passed over in the House. They call it a big, beautiful bill. I call it a betrayed for billionaires bill. It is a Republican ripoff because what they are doing is it will be the largest tax cut to healthcare ever. The largest tax cut to healthcare ever. And we know in this community, we don't have enough healthcare, right? People don't realize it's a cut to Medicare. There is a $530 billion cut to Medicare, and our seniors have paid into Medicare. They have earned that. And it will be cut by $530 billion. It is the largest cut to Medicaid. And when they're cutting Medicaid, we need to remember in communities like ours, I have visited with nursing homes here. I have visited with their clinics here. I have visited all over the place. And those places, we will lose 5 to 7 of our rural hospitals in New Mexico if that bill is passed. And when you lose a rural hospital in a community, it's not just the people who are on Medicare or Medicaid that lose services. It is everybody in that community. And for some places, like I will be out in Clayton, I'll be out up at the Miners Hospital in Raton. If they lose their OBGYN and you are pregnant, you're going to have to drive 3 hours when you go into labor. If you have a health complication, think about the terror as you are rushing down those highways. And you have seen, thank you for the state police for being here. Sorry, I don't know. I'm not going to give you any, but we know that the state police, right, have seen things like this where people are rushing because they can't wait for the ambulance to get to you. Those are the kinds of situations we're going to get into if this bill passes. Children will lose their health insurance. The Affordable Care Act, they're going to kick hundreds of thousands of people off the Affordable Care Act. Reproductive health care for women will be cut, even if you have private health insurance. They have set it up so they will deny access to abortion. But when they call it abortion, sometimes you have medical complications. They call that abortion when you have a medical complication and need to terminate a pregnancy because you were likely to die. That will be cut. And then the second element of the cruelty is the nutrition programs. We know in this very college that the students rely on the nutrition programs for themselves, so they are not hungry when they're going to school. We know that if you are here as a single parent, you might be using a nutrition program so your children don't go hungry. They're going to be cutting $300 billion in education funding so that programs here, like to help people get their GEDs and continue on, to help make sure that the students aren't hungry, to make sure that you can get a Pell Grant to help you pay for the expenses of going to college. Because I want to thank Leo Jaramillo and our state senators, because now you can come to college tuition free, but that doesn't mean it pays for all the other expenses, right? But why did they do that? Why would they have such cruel cuts to things that we know in northern New Mexico we rely on? Is to give tax breaks to the wealthiest. There are some tax breaks for middle families and other families, but in general, the lower half, the working class, the population, they will lose about $1,600 a year under this bill. So it is a tax increase for working families. And if you earn $3 million a year, you can do pretty good in this bill. How many people here earn $3 million? No hands are going up. That's exactly the problem. The people in the communities that we represent are going to be hurt the hardest. And when they then say that it is for fiscal responsibility because our debt is too big, they are right, our debt is too big. But why? Every Republican president has increased our debt. Both Bushes increased our debt. Bush increased our debt. Obama brought it up. right? Oh, Bush increased our debt, Clinton brought it down. Second Bush increased our debt, Obama brought it down. Trump increased our debt, Clinton brought it down. Biden brought it down, and now Trump wants to increase it again. So when they say it's to bring our fiscal house in order, sin vergüenzas y mentirosos, because they are causing a $3 trillion debt. So it's not for that. It is this fixation that they need to favor the wealthy and that it will trickle down to us. And I tell you, we are tired of the trickle down because that never comes down to us. And instead, what we need to ask for is argue for a vision that says, with a healthy democracy, we need to ask for more. We need to say, we want to make sure if you are pregnant, you can have access to Medicaid and have a healthy baby. They have that child then goes to school, you can get childcare, you can get early childcare. The people who are providing that care are paid, not just the living wage, but a living wage that allows you to buy a home of your own, that you can get the education support so that you can become, if you want to become a welder, you want to become a doctor, you want to become a teacher, whatever it is you want to become, you can realize your own potential, that the farmers who are among us, who sell their goods into those nutrition programs, double up bucks will be cut. Do you get double up bucks, Mr. Farmer? Yes, you do, right? And those are, do you see the joy? I know that my friends who are ranchers and farmers, they love the fact that their own neighbors can come and buy from them using those double up bucks. And they will cut all of that out. And this is not a vision that I have. Our vision is we should be supporting the ranchers and farmers so they can do what they need to do. We should make sure that this beautiful planet of ours is kept healthy, and that when you retire, you have your Social Security intact, and that you have a retirement intact, and that we are honoring our law enforcement. We are honoring our armed services, not with a parade, but with providing the veterans with the services they deserve. Now, is that the kind of vision you all want?
Yes.
That's the kind of vision we all need to fight for. And I need to tell you that how much they're going to be giving, the $700,000 to those people earning more than $3, they're going to be taking, contrast it, they're going to be taking $6.16. Because that's what you get in SNAP a day. $6.16 to give to somebody who makes $3 million. It breaks my heart. It is something that I do think we should and can get emotional about. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. We cannot be in despair and we cannot lose hope, because we are fighting back and we are going to win. And we're going to do it. We're going to fight the battles every step of the way. So I went back to Congress a couple of weeks ago. I flew in on a Monday night, worked, woke up the next morning, and didn't go back to sleep again until I made it back to Santa Fe on a Thursday night. And why? Because their bill was coming before the Rules Committee. And we fought them all night long. They started the committee hearing in the dark of night because they wanted to rip healthcare. I called it the vampire hearing. They wanted to suck healthcare away from Americans before the sun came up. But the sun came up and we were still fighting. The sun went through all the next day. We stayed fighting all the next night, and fought them. And then I got on a plane and came home and went to sleep, right? But one of the ways that we called them to task is they had a tax exemption for tanning beds. They were going to kick people out of hospital beds and give a tax exemption for a tanning bed because there is a certain president who likes his color. Are you kidding me? Right? Are you kidding? I called them out on that. I got like over 4 million views on a post that somebody put up. We put up one post, but then it went on TikTok, and I don't even have a TikTok account. 4 million views. They got so embarrassed by it that they took out the tanning bed exemption, right? Now, we can make them feel the same kind of shame about everything that's bad in that bill. Because we only need 4 Republicans to join us to oppose that bill in the House or in the Senate. And yet last 4 days ago, we had 6 Republicans voting with us against Trump wanted us to cut Big Bird and Sesame Street and public broadcasting and all of the money that goes internationally to help for health programs for to USAID. We had 6 Republicans at the last minute. They came and they put so much pressure that 2 of them did not have the courage and switched their vote. They actually had to switch. They had to go and say, we're sorry. And they switched their vote. But see, we had them. We had them. And the reason we had them is because we did that kind of thing. How dare you? How dare? And we were like, they were covering us. Our posts were going crazy. That's how we do it, is make sure everybody knows. So we want you to make sure you let everybody knows what goes on, because when we do things together, we feel strong, because it is the people who have the power in a democracy. And so it is the people who need to express that power in a democracy. And we do it in lots of different ways. We do it by showing up with each other, by supporting each other, by showing up at city town halls, by showing up at congressional town halls, by showing up and making sure you clean the ditch at the acequias, like in all the different ways we have of being in community together. That's how we do it. We do it by taking him to court. So far, there have been, it's such a big number, I have to remember it, 275 lawsuits against his actions. And of those 275 lawsuits, there already have been 184 decisions saying, I'm sorry, administration, you were wrong. What you have done is illegal or unconstitutional. So those are ways in which we have victory. And then what we're doing tonight. And we do know, the last thing I want to talk about is the idea of mass deportation. And that ICE is going around. And the reality is that they're not picking up criminals. In fact, they have moved border police who would normally be intercepting fentanyl and other drugs that we know come into our community. We want them to be intercepting those drugs, right? We want them to be involved in that. They have been moved from that so they could be doing these raids on the farms, in front of church parking lots. They are tearing children away from their mothers. They are arresting people because they are speaking Spanish. They are stopping Native Americans because they are brown. They threw Senator Alex Padilla, a sitting senator, to the ground for daring to ask a question, and maybe for being brown. Imagine if they do that and deport people and arrest people and incarcerate people, including United States citizens. And they do that to Senator Padilla. What does it mean for the rest of us? Especially in a community where we love nosotros encantamos hablar nuestro idioma, porque nuestro idioma es nuestra herencia, es nuestra cultura, es lo que somos. And we need to remember that that is also what is at stake, that we need to reclaim the Constitution and due process in every element. And that's what I am doing on your behalf in DC. And I don't care if I don't get to sleep for 40 some hours. It took me a while because I didn't even do that in college, but I don't care, right? Because this is my job. This is what you elected me to do. It's also my job to come before you. I've held town halls all across my district. Some of them have had, 600, 700, thousands streaming in online. Some of them have had, we're in a small gathering of veterans. Some of them have been big, small. It's important that we show up and do this. Republicans have been told not to hold town halls. So I have gone into Republican districts to hold town halls. I've gone into Republican states because they deserve to be told what is happening. And some Republicans have gone ahead and held town halls, even though they've been told not. And we saw what Senator Ernst did. When she was said, people are going to die because of the Republican bill, she said, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. That's not the answer. The answer is, let me look at this bill, because there have been studies now, and it is 52,000 people are going to die if that bill is passed. And they're going to die because I was out and I saw a dear friend of mine, a wonderful musician, and she was worried about the bill. And she said, And we talked about that comment and she said, you know, when you lose your health insurance, you do die. I lost my brother when he lost his health insurance. He couldn't afford the $400 inhaler he got that lasted him a month. So he'd end up in the hospital when he'd have an attack. But one day he couldn't make it. And he died, gasping for breath. It was a $400 inhaler. This country couldn't, because he lost that insurance and hadn't gotten onto Medicaid yet. $400 and he lost his life. And that's why when we say people are going to die, when you lose your health insurance, you lose that inhaler, you lose your insulin, you lose all those kinds of things that keep you alive and keep you part of our beautiful community. And I promise to you that I will keep fighting to make sure that you don't lose that. And that if we don't beat them back on this big, beautiful bill and that we don't get those 4 Republicans, we will vote them out of office. Because if they don't have the courage to stand in front of their constituents and to stand for their constituents, they don't deserve to be at the House of Representatives. Muchísimas gracias por estar con ustedes, aquí con ustedes. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some questions. And so people have written their questions down. Tell us how we're doing questions. Am I just going to click on you? Sure. Oh, did it work? This is Derek Toledo. Derek Toledo is part of my staff and he clearly is our techno guy. And he's also works as a liaison on Native American issues and environmental issues. I want to introduce Matt Miller. Who's also part of my team. We have our wonderful intern. And I often say, you saw when you were coming in that we were WD-40 for federal agencies. Please stand up. Carlos Sanchez. And then very importantly, Trish Dominguez, who's from right around the corner here up in Peñasco, is my district director. So the first question comes from Christine, and she wrote on the back of the card. Do you want to say your question, Christine? Because I prefer to hear your voice.
One, like the only one?
You're the one I pulled out of the hat.
Representative Fernandez, Ledger Fernandez. I am the Economic Development Director for Rio Arriba County. And this year we had put in for congressional spending and we got approved for 1.1 million for firefighter equipment and communications and 2.5 million for our recreation center that we're working with the college to get done. And of course, it wasn't approved. They cut all the spending from you. So that is part of it. And also, I'm just really concerned about all federal grants. I mean, I got a notice this week that they cut 1.8 billion from the veterans. And we are looking at losing our whole Health and Human Services department because it's all grant funded.
Okay, so there are, I think, 3 different pieces of where we're looking at the budget, the federal money. So the first one was the community projects, and I've tried to send money to Rio Arriba. We sent some money to the sheriff's office. We've sent some money for broadband. We've sent money for various things, and we loved that project, right? And so we chose it as one of our projects, right? But what happened is the community project funding, it's funding as part of the fiscal year funding. And because Congress and the Republican control did not actually pass a fiscal year bill, they did a continuing resolution. You cannot fund community projects and continuing resolution. So that didn't get funded. So until we actually pass a funding bill, which is our job to do, like when Democrats were in, we passed. We might not always do them on September 30th, but we did them, which is why I was able to get significant money for community projects. We need them to do that. Now, the likelihood of us getting to a fiscal funding bill, this is what we're up against. Is that the other piece of what you looked at is Trump's, they call it a skinny budget. He sent a budget to Congress saying, I'd like you to fund the different agencies at this level. I call it a starvation budget because he wants to defund education. He wants to name it and he doesn't want to fund it except for defense. So they want to increase defense, but everything else is some things get completely cut, 85%, 50%, completely eliminated. And so, but that budget is so bad that it's not likely to get the support of the Republicans in the Senate, that you won't get all of the Republicans because they will kill their universities too, right? So what we might have happen is that we have another time where they can't do their job, Congress, and it's under Republican control, and so it's on their watch. And that we have another continuing resolution, so the community projects will get funded. But the good news for the other bigger pieces is that if it's a continuing resolution, it's a continuing resolution of last year's budget. And last year's budget, because they didn't do their job, is actually a continuing resolution of the 2024 budget. Now, the 2024 budget was a Democrat budget, so it wasn't starvation. So that's the only like good news about the fight that's coming up, is we are hoping that we actually can keep it to a 2024 budget. But it's gonna be really messy on September 30th.
So will that mean some of the grants will become available again?
We will argue that if it's in a 2024 budget, and we just had this, I just had a meeting with the community college here about that if for the continuing resolution for this fiscal year that we're in right now, those grants are funded and sitting there, they should be appropriating and sending them out. I need to get some Republicans, and we already have a strategy on that, to join with me, because their community colleges in Indiana and Nebraska and Oklahoma are also suffering the same way. And the money's there, right? The money's there. And so we're going to push that they need to let that money flow. And you're probably going to see some more lawsuits around that. Because that's how we got the money unstuck. Remember the minute he came in, a week later, everything's frozen and then we got it unstuck. But that kind of uncertainty. And this is why he said they were going to lower prices from day one. They have done the opposite. Like everything they have done has increased costs, right? And that uncertainty has increased unemployment because people who don't have their grants approved can't offer employment. You can't guarantee somebody a job, right? And in addition to the federal funding, our food depots, I was up at one up in Farmington, they're empty. They should be stacked with food. So the food depots are half empty now. And the line outside is twice as long. He is not bringing down the food cost of food, but he is making Americans want. Thank you very much for the question. Luis. I'll just say the first name, pero tú sabes quién son.
I think I can get up.
Okay, just, you don't need to get up.
Yes, Representative, thank you very much for having come here today. Mira, when your intern approached me to help me write something, I lost my composure. You can understand that. What I really wanted to ask you was to elaborate on the dangers of the big boo-boo bill. But you have done a very good job of doing that already. So I want to thank you for that. I'm convinced that that bill is really the most dangerous thing that is out there right now. In English, they say the devil is in the details. In Spanish, we say something like el diablo se oculta de entre la paja. There's 1,100 pages there of really, really dangerous stuff. I know that it's over with the Senate right now, and you may never get a chance to impact it. If you don't, democracy in this country is definitely codified right out the window. But if you do get a chance at it, be aware that it's 1,100 pages of destruction that was planned over a 4-year period. Again, I thank you for your help.
Muchísimas gracias. You are right. Realmente es el diablo. I love that. Es el diablo. Because the other thing about this bill is, I'm a Catholic, go to church, right? And we listen and we're supposed to treat thy neighbor as thyself. Or the least of these. Like I loved it, our Archbishop Wester wrote a letter calling on the church to oppose the bill because it does not treat the least of us. So in the committee here, I pointed out that John the Baptist said, he who has 2 tunics should take off one and to give it to the person who has one. And you do the same thing. You have enough food and other goods to share. He who has 2 tunics should take off one to give to those who have. This bill is the opposite of that. It is taking the rags of those who are working the hardest and giving that clothing to the relatives. It is the opposite direction. Now, if somebody then told me, oh, but Peter says, they can get into the dueling, he said, Peter says he who does not work shall not eat. But we need to remember that the people who are utilizing many of these services do. Our community works for it. I heard, and this is in terms of answering the question of how do you I don't know. When I'm in DC, I'm all over the place. I work so hard. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I don't even remember what the days kind of blur. Maybe it was Wednesday or maybe it was Thursday that we had the Senate here. So I went over to the Senate. And so with all the women senators, and I'm the chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus, there are 96 women Democratic Congresspeople now, and I'm the chair. And so we put together a hearing together about how the bill betrays women. And one of the women who showed up talked about how she used to work 3 jobs to be able to pay for the needs of her children. And she said, and I realized I've never seen my children. So she was able to get a job at a school. She says, but I get paid once a month. And I went out of money by the end of the month. And if it weren't for food stamps, I would not be able to feed my child. My children, she has 3 children. Her children and her get together and plan how they're going to make sure that they have enough food. So these children know how difficult it is to be fed. And they plan the menu so that they will not, if she's thinking of getting something that they won't eat, she will not buy it. They cannot waste anything. And we all know people like this. They're our neighbors, they're our vecinos, they are us. And so we told that story and we told many other stories over in the Senate so that we could make sure the senators started hearing these stories. Senator Hawley is in a state that expanded Medicaid because unlike New Mexico, they didn't expand Medicaid. So the voters went and expanded Medicaid and now his state is stuck. Missouri, and there's 6 states that are stuck, that when they cut Medicaid, those states are going to be stuck to have to pick up the tab because they changed it by referendum. New Mexico is a problem, not a problem. It's a good thing to have, but we also are what they call a trigger state. That Senator Jaramillo and all of the legislature will have to go back to the session to find out how are they going to make up for all of the money that comes from the federal government. The law requires. The state doesn't have enough money to cover what we at the federal level are covering. That's just the fact. They don't have enough money to cover the SNAP, right? They don't have enough money to cover the Medicaid cuts. They don't have enough money to cover the other cuts. That would be half of our budget. Would just be making up with this, what the feds want. And then another thing, El Diablo, un poquito El Diablo, they cut royalty rates. The oil and gas industry made $200 billion in profits. And in the bill, they cut royalty rates for it. And when they cut royalty rates for federal and gas, Lisa, guess who gets hurt? About a little less than half of the royalties that come to the state. So we're gonna lose almost $500 million, about $467 million from this bill because they cut royalties. Like the oil and gas people need it? Like, no, we know they're important for state, but they don't need that kind of help, right? This is where everywhere you look, and esos detalles, and those kinds of details, they are standing with the wealthiest corporations against working families. How many more do we get? Okay, I'm gonna get one on the top. Brian Voss.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman, for being here, for all that you do. You were so inspiring at that Rules Committee hearing. We were able to see you forcefully come out against them. We see every day the damage that Trump and Doge are doing to our communities, all our civil service employees, our National Park Service employees. And almost every day we see some damage that they're doing. And it's very disheartening for us because we see that in a lot of time the work that you do and other senators and Congress people do, we don't get to see because it's behind the scenes. We see some court cases going through that we don't know that Trump is going to even follow the rulings of the courts. So I have probably a hard ask, controversial. I'd like to see our Democratic senators and congresspeople on TV fighting back, and I'd like to see a presence every day, if possible, coming out and elucidating exactly what the damages that we're going to be inflicted upon. And one suggestion would be, we have 262 Democratic senators and representatives in Congress. I'd like to see some civil disobedience happen. I'd like to see every day one of our senators or representatives go to an agency that's been shut down or had thousands of employees cut from their roles and get arrested. Just think what the media would do when 262 days in a row of a Democratic senator, congressperson getting arrested. Non-violently, but civil disobedience. We saw what happened to Senator Padilla. He was all over the news. So a hard act.
So thank you. So I think that the thing is that it's not such a hard ask if you think about the hard ask of let's do more. We're in a position right now of more is more, like more cannot be enough. And so you saw, I mean, like, I think almost all of my colleagues showed up and at No Kings Valley, showing up at town halls. You might not have heard, but I'm going to Republican town halls. I'm going to Republican states, and a lot of my colleagues are going to Republican town halls. We cannot control what the TV puts on the air. I will go any single, my people are calling them up and saying, you know, I got interviewed by one of the televisions, and I said, come to my town hall. You know, we invited them. We're asking them to come, right? And I'm showing up. I will show up. I show up on conservative. If I can get on a conservative television, I will. And then they say, oh, the fire is, got on one there. It's like, oh, the fire is in LA. It's because of DEI. And I'm going like, what? Like, how can you get? And then she goes, oh, it's because of the women firefighters. And I'm going like, well, you know what? Like, there's a lot of women who I would really trust to pull me out of a burning building. And then the funny thing is, then she goes, well, actually, I'm stronger than most of the men here. I could pull most of them out of a burning building too. So, you know, but that's the thing is, you just go on these places and you do it everything. But that's why I go to like, let's all do the living first. Let's be a living First Amendment where we do all of those things. And the reality is voters are now getting more of their information, not from television, but they're getting it from social media. Latinos especially, Hispanos especially are getting it from YouTube, from Facebook, from Instagram, from Blue Sky. You know, our people don't use X that much, but you know, and that's where getting it from. And so follow me. Go on. Should have a little thing. Go on right there, right there. You guys all got this, right? Here we go. In the back here, like follow me. And then retweet it, repost it, say something about it, follow other people, retweet it, repost it. That's how I got 4 million views on that one thing. But we need this happening all the time. And especially because you never know, you might have a cousin in Omaha, Nebraska, and that cousin might get really mad at and ask his congressperson, Don Bacon, it's like, why the hell did you? Because I called him out. I called out Don Bacon when he flipped us on that vote, when he flipped on that vote. And we are bringing pressure. That's what we need to do in answer you is bring that kind of public pressure. And we do it in many different ways. And we are showing up at federal agencies and asking questions. We're showing up at federal agencies and we're having protests. We're showing up at federal agencies and saying we demand to be let in. We are indeed doing all of these things and we are doing it also together with others. And so we need to do more of it. And we will continue to do more of it. And because it really is that doing it together, it is a compact we make with each other. Civil disobedience and civil protests and all of that doesn't happen. It's not one person. It is the people, right? Who has the power? The people have the power. What kind of power? People power, right? The power of the people must always be more powerful than people in power, right? You've been hearing that, you know, Dolores Huerta is always there. Who has the power? But that's true. And then that's how we do it. And we do it all together. And it takes many, many different forms. And that's what we're engaged in, right? And and we support each other when it happens. Because I need to tell you, La Monica McIver, one of my colleagues, and I have been helping lead the fight to support her. We got indicted for doing her job and showing up. Same thing that I've done when I've shown up at Treasury Department, you know, in other places. VAs, you know, we're showing up all over the place, but you're right. It's important. And then it's important for everybody to do whatever you can in your own spheres. Oh, can you give it back to Peggy? Oh, that's two Peggy? Okay, Peggy DeScoville. Oh.
Thanks so much for taking my question. So my question, that helped. My question is that big money has corrupted both parties massively and taken away our freedom of speech. Corporations are not people, yet they're recognized as people. Big money corrupts all the way up to the Supreme Court. Will you support Be the People Amendment HJ Resolution 54? I know in the past you have co-sponsored it, so I'm asking you to do that again. Get big money out of politics.
Right, and I think that this issue of corruption is really, really important. Right now, because so there's the wealthy, you know, prioritizing the wealth. And I need to know, there's a group called Millionaires of, what is it called? I have to remember the name, but they're just amazing group of millionaires. They're millionaires for something. I forgot what they are. They're like coming like, would you please tax us? Like they show up and they do this lobbying because they want us to pass, because they recognize that a healthier society is one that is more equal. But right now, the level of corruption is like we have never seen before. We have never seen before. We have never seen a president double and his family double his wealth since getting elected. A billionaire who invests, you know, $250 million and gets a return on the investment of, what's the number? 34 billion or 50, the number is so staggering, right? A plane. The gift of a plane that's worth $400 million, but you know what? That plane is not worth $400 million. The taxpayers are gonna have to pay $1 billion to fix it up so it could be usable, so that he can walk away with it as a gift. What level of corruption is that? The level of corruption is ridiculous. So not only do I think we should do that, I think we should ban stock trading by everybody in Congress. I don't have any individual stocks. It turned out, you know, when I first got there, it was like, oh, I had a couple of $1,000 maybe dollars in a retirement account. I was like, get rid of it, you know? You know, it was just, you know, my retirement guy had put it in there. It's like, when I got elected, we got rid of it, right? We should not have stock. We should, nobody who is a special employee they should not get a tax benefit. We need to not just have that, but we need to actually pass our voting rights bill, because that's in our voting rights bill. And this is what we need to do, this is why we have to have our vision of where we're gonna go. So we are opposing him right now. And I'm telling you of our vision of what we want in order to have this democracy where we all feel like we're part of it, where we don't have the corruption, where we're taking, you know, that money out, is we need to pass the John Lewis voting rights act. We need to pass the freedom to vote act. So they cannot gerrymander. They cannot destroy our electoral process. You know, their SAVE Act, they passed a bill that they said it's to make sure citizens don't vote. Well, non-citizens don't vote. Non-citizens don't vote. But what that would have done was made it harder for people in the military to vote. If you were in the military and not in your home place, it would have been harder for you to vote. Why do they want the military to vote? Because a lot of the military is kind of managed. Right? He's losing their vote because he's so disrespectful. They don't want women who are married and change the name to be able to vote unless they have a passport. How many of our working families of mothers walk around with their passport? Right? They want to suppress the vote. And we need to fight against that, because in order for us to achieve what we talk about, in order for us to achieve the American dream that we talk about, we need democracy to work. And the way you get democracy to work is to pass the bigger picture, which is the voting rights act. Well, that's in that bill. And that's actually, it's the bigger picture that we need, and we need to pass the bigger picture. Not just this one, but this is a sub issue that's actually in there, in the Freedom to Vote Act. And so you put that in, but then you do all of the other protections. Because we're pretty good in New Mexico, we have competitive districts. In other places, we're gerrymandered like crazy. And the fact that Democrats would still win is because we show up and we are of the people and with the people, and we stand and listen to questions, whether they're hard asks or easy. So, and my staff is giving me signs. We have time for one more. Yeah.
5 more.
5 more? Okay, 5 more then. Pat. And I feel like we should let Peggy talk, because she thought she was gonna have. Pat. Yeah. It's Pat Thomas.
That's me.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm trying to remember my question. I think my question had to do with the War Resolutions Act that Senator Kane is trying to pass.
Yeah.
And if you could talk about that a little bit, and that would restrict, I believe, or restrain Trump from getting us even more involved in the
Yeah.
Israeli-Iranian conflict.
So I think that this sits on both the issue around this particular conflict, that, and Trump's likelihood to get us involved will be shown. But it also said, so I haven't studied the resolution yet. I've been really busy today. I think he introduced it this morning, maybe. But the general sense, I am very supportive of. I haven't studied that part, so I don't want to tell you, oh, I'm co-signing it, but I haven't studied it. But that is exactly what I believe is important, because what's important is that we pull the powers back from the president and that Congress starts doing its job. You know, and if you guys don't have anything to do on Mondays, C-SPAN and the Rules Committee, I am pulling up the Constitution all the time. It's like, in the Constitution. Once I had it upside down, my staff were like, "You're holding it upside down." Oh, sorry about that. In the Constitution, we should, Congress, because we answer to you. And it's your children who are going to end up going to war. That we need to come and answer to you before we ever declare war. And there are limited circumstances where we need to respond, different things like that. We get that, but we have gotten in trouble before, right? And we have ended up in never-ending wars that took forever to end, right? And they're difficult decisions, but I should have to look at that and make the decision that I believe best reflects what you want, what I think is safe, and then be able to stand before you answer it. Where you're not going to get a president before you answer it. That's why Congress is supposed to do.
It's in the Constitution.
It's in the Constitution. Congress has that power. Congress has the power to declare tariffs, right? And what Republicans did in the House was they passed a resolution, because you can do a short-term thing. And then if a congressperson says, well, I want to review these tariffs in 20 days, it has to go to Congress, and Congress has to decide in 20 days whether you review that. You know what the Republicans did? They passed a rule that says the clock, it's still March 20th. The clock has not turned. They passed a rule that says time is stopped with regards to that tariff. This is why we need to vote him out of office. How could you give up your responsibility? And people do not like, their constituents don't like tariffs. They don't have the courage. And if you like the tariffs, so every Monday in my Rules Committee, I do an amendment. Madam Chair, I have an amendment. And we cannot stop time. You cannot stop time. And while you are stopping time, small businesses are hurting. Go into any small business and ask them whether the tariff uncertainty is hurting their business, right? Baby products. Oh my God. It's already too expensive to have a kid anyway. And now a car seat. I go on, whatever it is, whether you need a car seat, it's a necessity, or you have to do blood camping, like whatever it is, right? And so every week I do an amendment that says, I want to start the clock. I want us to stop believing that time is stopped. And then they go, oh, at first they used to fight with me all the time. Now they just go, now they just vote no. But one of the times they were like, but we think the tariffs are going to sit, then vote on. Then let Congress debate it on the floor and then vote on. And every time the Republicans, the rules, unfortunately, we have 4 votes and they have 9. And so I lose the vote, but I now have one guy who leaves. Chip Roy leaves. You know how Chip Roy is, but Chip Roy is this very extreme Republican, and he leaves so that he doesn't have to vote on my amendment. Because some people think it is wrong that we are letting this go through. But anyway, so we will, that I absolutely, I would probably sign on to them. I might just haven't read it yet, but that thing of it's our job.
Yes,
And it's my job to stand before you and say, this is why I did or did not vote for them. So.
time for 2
2 more questions. Laura.
Yeah,
Laura does. Hi, Laura.
Yeah, I was just wondering I'm trying to figure out how what impact is ICE having in Rio Arriba? Are people being raided? Are there raids happening here?
So.
I don't know where to find that out.
Yeah, I'm curious. So in my district, this is where I need you all to help us out, right? If you hear of anything, let us know. We do know that there've been some raids in my district down south, in southeast. And so we have followed up on those. We've tried to find, and I call it disappearing, because they are disappearing people. We don't know where they're going. We know that people who are citizens have been picked up. And so it's when there is people stand up and what's happening and immediately get and post tallies. But I haven't heard about any raids, like raids happening in Rio Arriba. So I don't think they're happening yet. So I don't think we've really seen that yet. And partially it's because we're real small fish. They're gonna go looking, but now they've been told. See, this is why it's so stupid. Now they've been told, well, oh, don't go bother the agricultural thing. So like we were seeing raids in agricultural facilities that had larger, that weren't small farms, but were larger, the dairy farms and stuff. So we don't know what they'll do, because if they can't go into agriculture and hospitality and service, then where are they going to go? Because they've been told it's not about go find some criminal activity. It's go make 3,000 arrests a day, and now it's going to be 4,000. They're arbitrary numbers that don't reflect. Let's go and find. We all want to any kind of criminal activity, and especially the reality is an interesting number is that immigrants don't smuggle fentanyl. Citizens do. Citizens, and that is a study that was done by the Cato Institute, which is a right-leaning institute, not right, very right-leaning institution. So, but they don't want to. It's just a pretext, right? It's a pretext to gain power by dividing a nation, and we do want to fix a broken immigration system. We want legal pathways for our immigrants, especially those who have been here forever, our dreamers. There needs to be a legal pathway. I have been a co-sponsor of 3 key bills: the Dreamer Bill, the Workforce Modification Bill, and the Citizenship Bill. And I actually have, in a very interesting way, think that he has gone way too far in his immigration mass deportation, that people are now recognizing the importance of this community in our community. They are of us, our neighbors and our coworkers, and that we might be able to, once we get back the House or the Senate, we'll get back the House, we do our work, be able to work on getting some immigration solutions, and we have solutions. And so hopefully we'll get to something there. But so far, I think we're okay. But if you hear of it, let us know. That's why we gave you that information. Okay, the last question. These are the Bustoses are getting things. Don Bustos. You guys related by any chance?
First cousin.
Is there any Bustos that's not related?
No, that's why I'm not married. I'm related to everybody.
That's my cousin. Thank you very much, Congresswoman, and we do really appreciate all you're doing for us and really helping preserve Northern New Mexico tradition and cultures. What you talked about today really affects our family and our community directly. My son is born with Down syndrome, so anytime a cut is made to any kind of medical services, it's effectively impacting our communities directly, and I speak for a lot of different communities in the area. So that's really important to continue that kind of work to preserve that. But I have a specific question for you. Last night, I can't remember, the Senate came out on some kind of an appropriation, and they're starting to sell our common lands. So we're part of the Santa Cruz de la Cañada land grant. There's several land grants across New Mexico. And just a big shout out to Senator Jaramillo. He helped us get Senate Bill 47 this year passed, and we're recognized as a political subdivision of the state. We've been a land grant for 400 years, but now we're recognized by New Mexico. And the things that really start to worry us is about the sales of public lands that were land grant lands being done now by Congress or the Senate. I'm not really sure, but could you address that? How could we stop our common lands, places to go for our forest, our herbs, fishing? That's all going to be sold out from underneath us. That's pretty important to northern New Mexicans. Thank
It's really hard because those, as you're right, they are now federal land, but they used to be land grant common land, right? And so that is very, very problematic. They did have, and I think there's two ways of looking at selling off our public lands. Three ways. One is where they outright say, well, we're going to sell off this public land, and they actually stuck into the bill at the last minute in the House Natural Resources, an actual mandate by Congress to sell public lands in Nevada and in Utah. And it was literally last minute. We had been in the House Natural Resources, where I was sitting, that committee, and I sit on the public lands. We had been in for like 13 hours or something. And the last amendment was that like 1 o'clock at night or something. And we just went crazy. It's like, see, this side of our plans. They actually took that piece out because there were several Republicans who were opposed to outright sales of public land in the bill. So, and it's interesting, it's Ryan Zinke, and we need to give a shout out. You know, I'm a member of the caucus too, but Gabe Vasquez started the Public Lands Caucus with Ryan Zinke. Brilliant. So we have to thank Gabe Vasquez for that, because Ryan Zinke is then like coming to the defense and you can't put those kinds of things in the bill. But there's another way in which they're getting rid of our public lands. So it's not an outright sale. What it is they are saying we are going to force the leasing for mineral development. You're required to do X amount of leases a quarter. You must. So they're going to go around leasing all that land, right? And I'm fighting them on the Pecos. And so we're fighting them on that. On the Pecos, we had Secretary Bergram before the committee on Thursdays, let's say Wednesday, and I got him to agree because a lot of those mining companies are owned by foreign corporations. Guess how much money they pay in royalties? Do you guys know how much people who are taking our copper, our gold, or silver, or all these things, they pay this much in royalties? Nada, not a dime. So that's the other way in which, like, our lands will go to the lowest bidder and will be sold off because they're going to mandate. So we're fighting that. We think there might be some senators who also don't like those provisions. It might take time. And then, so those are the two big ways, but I want to say some things that I'm doing, because one, we will reintroduce the Merced bill to require more consultation with the land grant. So I will carry that bill again. And then I'm going to introduce, and I'm working on trying, now that bill is just, you know, Benway and I leading it. And we got it close last time. We might have to wait until we'll have to wait until we get the House back. But we'll keep introducing it so we can keep it alive. But on a bipartisan basis, I do have several representatives where we want to do what they call a small tract. So you're allowed to convey a small tract of land without going through, because public lands get sold and traded all the time. But there's a very long process to do, so you have to show that there's lots of different, meet different purposes. You know, tribes will buy a piece over here and give that to the federal government, and then the federal government will allow them to acquire little fees. It's done all the time. Cities do it, counties do it. There is always movement happening, but it's a very detailed process. It has to be for the public interest. It can't just be giving away. But there's something called a small tract land that's easier, and you do it for very specific purposes. And I have a bill that says for cemeteries, right? Because a lot of our cemeterios, right, they're on forest land that are no longer owned by the land grant. So I have a bill to allow that to happen on an expeditious manner. So I'll be introducing that in a week or two. And so everybody, what I need you to do is sign up for my newsletter. I can't sign you up, so you need to sign up for a newsletter. When we introduce that, that'll be in the newsletter. Hopefully we'll get some press on that or the TV, because we want good news to come across so people don't feel completely despair that we can get some of these bills through. Another interesting thing that they just did in the Senate was our Radiation Exposure and Compensation Act. That has been included in the Senate bill at a $5 billion cap, which we had already negotiated that. And so Senator Hawley, which like the fact that I work with Senator Hawley is always so interesting. It's like, oh, me and Senator Hawley, Ben Ray has done an amazing job. Ben Ray has done an amazing job of working with Senator Hawley. That's in that bill. I won't vote for the bad bill because of that, but I'm glad it's in it. And there are certain things that are in that bad bill that are okay, like redoing some of the farm bill provisions, so there are things in there that are okay, right, that they're doing in that bill because they never got the farm bill passed, so they have to stick with it here. So there are a few things they do that aren't bad. So, but I'll keep you up to date on the small tract cemetery bill, because I think that's important. Little things like that. And those are things that, by the way, you all came to me and talked to me about it. You came to AJ. And you told AJ about it. There's AJ who works on her land grant issues, and we were like, oh, well, let's get that fixed. And so hopefully we'll be able to get that fixed sometime in the next couple of sessions, if not this year. Bruno.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for participating. Please do sign up. Please keep me informed of your concerns, of your worries, of your ideas, and then share, post. Democracy is, it's not passive, it's active. We all need to. Thank you.
Keep fighting, Congresswoman.